With VCT about a month away, teams are pulling out all stops for this last year of franchising before Riot's entire rework. With this offseason bringing a lot of question marks, it's about to make the next season truly interesting. So in spirit of the crazy roster mania, I decided to take a deep dive into all teams' roster moves for VCT America and really analyze what I think they're going to do, how I think it's going to work out for them, and just make general predictions for the 2026 season. Now firstly, I'm going to start off with my favorite team, Sentinels. After more or less committing an entire rebuild off of a somewhat disappointing 2025 season, Sen's new roster consists of Kiyu, Redux, Narrate, John QT, and Cortezia. Now first, I'm going to start off with the changes. Leaving the squad was Bang, Zekin, and Zelsis. And with Zekin leaving, that brought a huge question mark as to what the duelist role was going to be and how it was going to be filled. Bringing two tier 2 players in also raised a lot of questions as to what their performance is going to look like and a lot of criticism on Redux. Kiyu is the team's new IGL and is going to be playing mainly scan initiators. Next, we have the Cortezia pickup, and so far in the offseason, it's probably their biggest pickup, their biggest change, and the most impactful one I've seen so far. Since release from MIBR, I was hoping that Sentinels would have picked him up, especially with Zelsis being a question mark for re-signing with the team or leaving or even retiring. Now, interestingly enough, this year, aside from Kiyu and Narrate having their own locked roles, Kiyu being scan initiator and Narrate being duelist, almost every other player is going to be flexing, going through a lot of different agents solely based on what map they're playing, and I'm assuming what they're most comfortable on that map. Now, with the ever-changing meta of Valorant, this can work, but traditionally, this might crash and burn. So far in the offseason, we'll take a look at that and see how that's been going for them. Now I'm just going to give a quick little breakdown on each player and how their role is going to go within Sentinels, starting with Kiyu. Kiyu is a new IGL that shows a lot of promise. They made a deep run in Cubert within Ascensions and shows a lot of potential in his ability. Now so far it's been a learning curve for him. Not only is he on a new team, he's also moved up to tier 1, and doing all of that while IGLing is going to be tough. So far in this offseason, across Sen Invitational, Sen Classic, and Red Bull, Kiyu has an average ACS of 185 and an average VLR rating of 0.97. Not exactly lighting up the scoreboard, but as time goes on, I can definitely see a lot of promise, and the ceiling is really high for him too. Next, we have Redux. Redux was definitely one of the most interesting pickups. Now, we all saw this coming from the beginning of last year, where they teased Redux being part of Sentinel's main roster and taking over for Zelsis. It never came to fruition, and for the entire time, Redux stayed in tier 2. And while his performance wasn't the greatest in tier 2, it also raised a lot of questions how he would perform amongst other tier 1 teams and whether or not he's a viable replacement for the changes that they made during the offseason. But I will say personally that Redux has thoroughly impressed me with how he's played in these offseason tournaments, and honestly seems like Sentinel's most explosive player this year. I personally would feel a lot more comfortable right now based on what I've seen in the offseason of Redux being the primary duelist for Sentinels. Now I thought the ceiling for Q was really high, but for Redux I can say without a doubt that he's going to be one of the top rated players of 2026. So far this offseason, across the previous tournaments that they played in, Redux is sporting an average ACS of 228 and a VLR rating of 1.14. Now we move on to one of my favorite pickups, Cortezia. This guy has been the breath of fresh air that Sen fans and the Sentinels roster needed. He was truly the vibes guy for MIBR last year, and as the season went on, he progressively got better, especially with a strong showing at Champs and finishing in top 6. So far, all across the offseason, Cortezia has been their most consistent and best player. He brings a lot to the table across map knowledge, util knowledge, aim, and calm, cool collectedness in the clutch. Mix that in with just bringing the vibes. This is exactly the glue man for Sentinels this year, and I'm very excited to see what he does in the full season. Now, as the highest rated player for Sentinels across the offseason, he is sporting a 222 average ACS and a VLR rating of 1.21. Now for the returning members. One of my favorite players, John QT. He is returning, and we didn't know exactly where he was going. There was a lot of reports that he was going to KC. After a down 2025 season, I am truly happy that he stayed with Sentinels. This year, he won't be IGLing and solely focused on fragging and mid-rounding. And across listening to a lot of the comms during their uncensored videos and listenings in their Sen Invitational and Sen Classic, he is still very vocal, and he does play that unk role where he's really just in the middle of fights, in the middle of calling. He's getting his 2 cents in, and Q is definitely one of those IGLs, as he said on interview, that he would listen to his players. He does listen to his team. So far, that duo of calling has been working decently well, and I can only see it getting better from here. In John's first year, he was one of the better fragging IGLs, and we all know exactly what he's capable of. So hopefully this year, with taking the load off of full IGLing, he's able to bring those fragging numbers up. Combined with his ability to play a lot of different agents, he's really a huge puzzle piece for this Sen roster, and it's only a matter of time that he gets more comfortable. Across the offseason, he hasn't been doing the best, but across playing a lot of different agents and being a mid-rounder now, things have to feel a little different. Across all 3 offseason tournaments that they've played in, John has an average ACS of 161 and a VLR rating of 0.98. Now we move on to what I feel is the most interesting piece of the Sentinels roster, Narrate. Now, why do I say that? I am a huge Narrate fan. I believe in his potential through and through, but consistency has been his issue. I'm going to say it now, and you'll hear a lot of people say it, that when he's playing his best, he plays like the best player in the world. If he's able to consistently play at that level, there truly can be no stopping Sen this year. Now, switching his role from scan initiator last year to primary duelist, you can see that he does have a learning curve to get accustomed to. Now, primary playing a lot of dive agents, you can see some struggles in pathing and awareness, but I truly feel like the more comfortable he gets in that role, the better he will become, and letting him off that leash can cause some insane moments, and he has had some insane moments in this offseason. Don't let these numbers fool you. Once consistency kicks in, I feel like he can be a top 3 duelist in VCT Americas this year. And yes, I do know that Ospas and Jogmo are still in Americas this year. I stand by that statement. Across the offseason tournaments, like I said, he hasn't been doing the greatest because he has been adjusting to a new role, a new play style, and also a new team. His average ACS is 213 and a VLR rating of 0.99. But mark my words, he is going to be a huge piece of the Sentinels roster this year. We went through the roster changes. We went through a little bit of the offseason drama, what Sentinels missed out on, what they lost. I'm sure, as you know, of any sports fan, esports fan, losing players just sucks. Every new year is a hopeful year. So what are the goals of Sentinels for 2026? With a young and new roster and a rebuild year, doing well domestically and qualifying for international should be their goal. Making a deep one is plausible. Do I see them winning an international this year? Can't say for sure, and a realistic expectation wouldn't be so. As a team, I do feel like that expectation, that goal should be there, at least for the first half of the season. Now, depending how things go, goals might shift, goals might change, but when it comes in time for the first Masters, which is a little bit extended, it'll be 3 teams just as a typical second Masters would be, I would hope to see them in that Masters Santiago. Does that mean if they don't qualify or don't do well domestically, then the team is a failure? Of course not. But there's a lot of raw talent on this team. They mesh really well together, and anything less can be seen as just a little disappointing just because I feel like truly have that potential this year. Now, on a more personal side, my expectations. There's a lot that can go right with this team, but there's a lot that can go wrong. The new core with the new mix-up, I feel like the beginning season is always a 50-50 coin flip, and it doesn't matter which team that we're talking about. There might be some growing pains in stage 1, there might be frustrations, but there might not be. Now, even if they don't necessarily make it in internationals, I do feel like they should at least be in the running for so. I should not be null and void like halfway through each stage where they're just playing to play and hoping that the next stage is going to go better or the run for champs is going to go better. The duo of Narrate and Cortesia, and Redux, depending on how they want to push it, brings a lot of firepower. The big brains of John and Kiyu honestly can cause for some absolute cinema moments. There's a lot of moving pieces with this roster, but I feel like if they all move in the right direction at the same time, there can be no stopping this Sentinels roster. The ceiling is really high for this one. That being said, I do feel like a lot of America teams are stacked this year, so we'll just have to wait and see. But that's going to be all for this video. If you guys agree with what I said, disagree, please let me know in the comments, and like, share, and subscribe if you want to hear more.